Hello, my dears. Daniela here, and welcome to another episode of the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. For this episode, I invited my dear friend, Tamiko, Tamiko is someone who has been so instrumental in my life because she was the one who helped me get Taya to sleep. And if you guys have been following me for a while, we talked about that a little bit in the interview, but she has a course called, I don't know what it's called, but I was at the end of my rope because her longest stretch of sleep was 3 hours this is up until 14 months. And then I took Tamiko's course. My husband was totally against it. He was like, we are not spending that much money on a course. We've already spent so much money. We've been to specialists. We've done all of these kind of things. And our daughter still wasn't sleeping at 14 months. And it was really affecting our home life. It was affecting my business. We need sleep to function, and I was not getting it. And so anyway, Tamiko's course had like a crazy guarantee. It was like, if your baby's not sleeping 11 to 12 hours per night within 30 days, then you get a full refund. And I was like, great. It was something crazy like that. And we didn't even need the 30 days. Taya it was like, we took the course, we did word for word everything that she said. Plus, in the interview here that I'm going to play for you in a minute, we talk about this guy, Jim Fortin, who both of us have done coaching with. And Jim gave me a visualization to do. And so I was doing Tamiko's course, everything that she said. I was doing the visualization. And overnight, you guys, the first night that I put Taya in her crib, she slept 11 hours. So I went from waking up every 2 to 3 hours, having to nurse my baby back to sleep, to having her sleep for 11 hours through the night. It was life-changing. So that is kind of the background story of how I know Tamiko. We became friends after that, obviously, because I was so impressed with what she was doing. And like any of you, so many of you are probably moms. You're dealing with family life, that work-life balance, running your own show. But when you have these stresses of like your baby not sleeping, and how can you show up for work and be present for your clients when you haven't slept? I mean, that's a real issue. So anyway, Tamiko, that is how she came into my life. That is why I love her so much. I mean, there's many reasons that I love her, but that was like, she was such a game changer in my life and my business, because I could show up in a whole new way. But why I invited her to be on the show was really because as I got to know her, I got to learn so much more about her perspective on money and how she approaches money and how she approaches business. And so many of us in our businesses have these blocks when it comes to money. And so many of them might even be subconscious for you. You don't even realize that you have them. But she has such an interesting perspective. Our conversation, it's so fun. I love hearing her perspective and her journey of what she did to really break through those money blocks and go from a corporate job, a 9 to 5, into now having a multiple 6-figure business. So she is truly an inspiration. So I invite you to listen to this episode, listen to it again. She gives so many great pieces of advice. So without further ado, let's go ahead and play that episode. All right, my dears, I am here with my friend Tamiko. She is the founder of Sleep Well, Wake Happy. I like to call her the baby whisperer because, as many of you guys know, I had quite the journey getting my daughter to sleep at night. And Kyle and I were like, I didn't even know if I was going to keep my business open because I wasn't sleeping through the night. Taya didn't sleep until she was 14 months old. And a huge amount of credit goes to Miss Tamiko, the baby whisperer, and her course for helping us get Taya to sleep. But this is the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. This is not the baby sleep podcast. I brought Tamiko on for a very special reason. So Tamiko and I have gotten to know each other over the past year or so, and she has such an interesting and unique perspective on money. And so many women, and Tamiko, you and I were talking before, and you just said money is something that women need to talk about more.
Yeah.
And you are so grounded and confident in your approach to money. Like, just the things I've heard you say over the past year or so has been really inspiring for myself and for so many other people. So I'm just rambling on here. Why don't you tell just like a little bit about your story and how your relationship with money evolved over time?
Yeah, so I'm super excited to be here with your peeps today. Thank you so much for having me on. So my name is Tamiko Kelly. I help tired mamas feel like themselves again by teaching them how to get their babies sleeping through the night. I've been the baby whisperer since 2008, and I've helped hundreds, probably thousands at this point, families get their babies sleeping through the night. My journey into business is a very unconventional one. I grew up in a family of business owners. So my grandparents had a store. My dad had a photography business. My mom was a fitness instructor. And so very early on, I learned the importance of earning your own money. But what I did not learn, Daniela, early on was how to actually manage that money and how to actually continually welcome that money into your life, right? I always heard things like, money doesn't grow on trees. Do you think I'm made out of money? Turn off the lights. I don't have money to get to the light people. I don't have money for that. We can't afford that. I just bought you that. How could you break it? So I always had all these reinforcements growing up about how money was so scarce and you had to hold on to it for dear life, because if you let it go, you would never see it again. And so that story that I was taught as a young child, it basically replicated itself throughout my entire life. And it wasn't until I was actually out of college, out of corporate, that I finally turned that thing around to be able to become a money magnet, someone who easily manifests money, who welcomes money into their life. But it was a long journey to get there for sure.
So with our audience here, a lot of them are solo estheticians. So they are small business owners, they're one-woman shows, and a lot of money blocks come up related to not even believing that it's possible. There's this big goal of, so many solo estheticians, they want to hit 100,000 in revenue. And that's like their big magic number. It's like become this, milestone for people to hit. But it's also, when you tell them that, it's like, when they say that, they're, oh, I never could do that.
Right.
I never could, because that 100,000 just seems so far out of reach. And I've broken it down for them. And I said, you guys, it's $400 a day. Can you $400 a day? You can.
Right.
That's like 3 facials,
Right. 3
but
facials.
It's the reason that they're not able. It's mental. It's in there. They're blocking it. So as someone, that grew up with those blocks yourself, or those kind of beliefs, what was it that you did, or what happened for you to be able to move past those? Because what our audience doesn't know is that you're a multiple 6-figure business owner.
Yes.
Right. So you're not just like making babies sleep. You're doing a great job making babies sleep, but you're a very successful entrepreneur and businesswoman.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would definitely say that A lot of people who run solo businesses, and again, I support my solo estheticians out there. Big shout outs to y'all because I've been going to my same crew of beauty people since the beginning of time and I'm never leaving them. So I'm like devoted, die hard to the end of the world and back. I send them clients probably like every week. Like I'm rooting for them to be successful.
And we thank you for that.
So a lot of people will tell you, just charge more money. Okay. Well, let's talk about that for a minute because I think that that's a lie that's being told to a lot of people in all areas of businesses. And I think it's a false thing that's being told to people because if you're talking to someone who already has a limited belief about money, having them charge more sends them into a deeper spiral around that same amount of money. Mm-hmm. So what we have to do first is address the core reason why you don't believe that you are able to make $100,000 a year. Like, what is the real reason behind that? So I had to do this work on myself, which is why I'm happy to share it with y'all because I had to do it myself because I was not always a successful person. I too had to have a business and work a corporate job. I too had to have multiple roommates. I too had to be on a strict budget and figure out, am I going to buy this or buy that? So I understand what it's like to have to pick between two things that you really need because there's just legitimately not money in your account to cover both. And the breakthrough for me was when I realized that I am the only reason why I can't make or do what I want to do. Because I've convinced myself that it's not true and it's not possible for whatever reason that is. I actually had one of my girlfriends many years ago, it's probably been, 7, 8 years ago now, who told me to watch the movie The Secret. Never heard of it before, never seen it before, but by watching that movie that one day, many, many years ago, it turned on a light switch in my head and I was like, that's very interesting.
See, you know what? The Secret for me, I watched The Secret too, but I was like, what the hell is this?
Oh my God, right?
It took me so long. It took me I was like, so you make a vision board and a Ferrari shows up in your garage. Like it took me.
Really?
I was just so like, all right, so what action do I have to take? And it really honestly has not been until the past year and a half or so where I have seen myself kind of manifest and create these different things that I'm like, what's it going to hurt if I do this? Or what's it going to hurt? But I didn't have that when I first watched it. I was just cracking up.
So for me, Daniela, when I first watched The Secret, I was not watching it because I didn't know what it was. So I came in with no preconceived notions. I literally had no idea what I was going to watch. I just turned it on and watched. So I was not, when I watched that movie, I did not watch it through the lens of this can't be true. I simply was just watching a movie. I was just watching a movie. That's all I was doing.
So you were present. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I was just watching a movie. So for me, once I watched that movie, I was like, what the people just said to me is very interesting. Clearly it works because they've made a multi-million-dollar movie about it. So what do I have to lose by trying what these people are telling me? And so that same friend then told me to go read Pam Grout's book.
E Squared?
E Squared. And I was like, okay, I read that book. And so I basically went through and did like one or two of the things she said through that book. And I was like, oh my God, this is really working. And so again, I am not a person who grew up in a house where we talked about manifestation, talked about energy, our auras. Girl, I come from a Black family who is on Team Jesus, and we only believe what we can see. Okay. So there is no talk about any of the metaphysical world at all. Okay. If it's not in the Bible, it ain't true. So that's what I, grew up around. So for me to do these kind of things was a huge shift and change for me. That's when I began to see, okay, there really is something to the way that I think and see things is literally how it turns up in my life. Back then, I didn't even know about EFT, manifestation. I didn't know about any of that. All I knew was that if I thought about something long enough and did what Pam told me to do, it started to happen. So I was like,
So what did your family think about this when you were going
no, I
through
didn't
this?
tell them. I didn't tell them. No, no, because I already knew what they were going to say. What? No, I did not tell them. Like, there's no way. So my lesson to your people is don't tell folks who you already know are negative Nellies. Don't include them in your journey. Just okay. When they ask you a question, how's everything going? It's going great. Thank you for asking. Like, don't even go deep.
So what about now, like with your family now, when you obviously, made it through this journey, you came to this place where you're not struggling anymore and you've really created this amazing business. Did they attribute that to just hard work, or did you start to kind of share a little bit about what you were doing with your mindset and these other kind of, like, I guess, quote unquote woo woo things?
Yeah. So I've shared with a little bit with my sister. I've given, her like a small, like 1/100th of what I've been doing. She's very supportive though. Love her to death. She's 100% supportive, super supportive. But there's other people in my life they're just not ready. It has nothing to do with me. They're just not at a place in their life where they're ready to hear what I did to get to where I am. In their mind, they think I just work hard, never sleep, and I grind until I die, and that's how I made all this money. Like they don't understand that that's actually the opposite of what I've been doing.
So what about your support system? Because as entrepreneurs, and especially like as, for solo estheticians, these woman shows can be really lonely and hard to find a community like that. I'm sure there's tons of our listeners right now who feel exactly the same way as you, that like, I maybe have one person in my family that I can tell, 1/100th of what I'm doing.
Right.
I
mean, for me, I just created a community of entrepreneurial friends. So I live in Austin. Austin is a very entrepreneurial city. So I've been blessed to be in a city where entrepreneurship is celebrated. I also live in San Francisco, the same thing. Entrepreneurship is celebrated. So there's tons of communities and ways to get involved with groups of entrepreneurs who totally support and get what you're going through, want to see you do well. So I just encourage people to build your own business family, build a group of people who you can go to ask those hard questions, to brainstorm about things. Because I think the biggest lie that we can tell ourselves as business owners is that we can do it all and we can do it all by ourselves. Like, we need other people to help us see what we can't see, because sometimes we're so close, so engrossed in everything that we just don't know what we don't know. So if you have somebody who's not an esthetician, who's in a completely different business than you, who you have, invited to your business family, they can give you a new perspective on how to do something that in your industry has been done the same way for hundreds of years. They can be like, well, girl, have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about doing this? And you'd be like, oh, I didn't even think about that. So I think it's important to build a business family, whether that's in masterminds, whether that's just in a group of girls who in your community who own businesses, whether that's, virtually. So they don't have to live in your same town. It's helpful, but it's not required. You can build a virtual network of people who also own business. And I think it's important too, Daniela, to build a group of folks who don't all do the same thing. Like, it's great to have esthetician friends, but I think it's also important to have other friends who have other kinds of businesses, because I feel like we learn the best from folks who are not in our particular industry.
Well, they can shine lights on our blind spots.
Right.
Yeah,
sure.
Definitely. So where are you at in your money journey now? Do you feel like it's something that you broke through, or is it this ongoing process to kind of grow and evolve and allow more wealth into your life? Or how does that work for you?
I mean, it's definitely ongoing. And I would say anybody who is on a money journey, it's always going to be evolving, because each time that you break through a block, you have officially up-leveled yourself. And so when you get to a new level, there'll be a new block to break through. And so every time you break through a block, you've up-leveled yourself. And so I am constantly on the journey to you know, see my blocks, work through them, break through them, and up level. And yes, it gets easier every time I do it, but I still have money things that pop up because even though I've been doing this for a long time, I still sometimes hear like, oh my God, are you going to make it? Well, if you don't do this, you're not going to get this amount of money. And oh my God, what happens if XYZ happens? So even now, I still hear that, but it's easier for me to snap back. It's easier for like me to be like, girl, come on. Like, look at your track record. Like, even like, stop. Just, it's fine. It's all going to work out as it is. Let's just keep it moving. And so now I'm able to bounce back quicker. I also have the tools now to be able to, when I feel myself going in that direction, I know what to do to get myself back, to be centered, and to be ready to receive everything that's coming to me.
So one thing that really impressed me about you was we were at a business event together, and there's a gentleman named Jim Fortin who both you and I have done coaching with.
Yeah.
And he was telling a story about you were doing some one-on-one work with him, and he's very, very expensive to do one-on-one work with. And he said, no one else ever has done this before, but Tamiko, when she committed to one-on-one work, she wanted to pay me right away. And you wanted to pay because you felt like that money would come back to you. Or what? Explain your process in that. Because I think that for so many business owners, it's like you see money going out and you look at it as an expense rather than an investment.
Right, right. So big shout out to our homie Jim Fortin. We love you. So I think with Jim, like specifically, it was because for me, whenever I commit to something to say I'm all in on something, I want to be sure that I am rewarding the person who's going to help up level me by giving them my gratitude in the form of monetary gifts. So I want to be sure that when I say yes to somebody and we're working together, I want to pay you as quickly as possible. And so I have never been the person to wait for an invoice. I'm always like, where do I send this money to you? Because I already know that once I release that money, that's me telling the universe or God, I'm on TG, so I call him God. That's me telling God, I'm ready for this. Like, I am ready for this next step. And this is me telling you that I am all in and I'm ready to do the work that it requires to get to where you want me to be. And so for me, it's super easy to do that now because I've done the pre-work. Some of our folks who've listening to this, they may be stuck in a cycle of every time I pay money to somebody, I never see that money again. Or I've invested in folks before, I've never gotten that money back. And to them, I would simply say, the problem is not with the person who you're giving the money to, the problem is with you. And that's a hard thing to hear, especially if you're somebody who feels like you're doing the best that you could do. But at the end of the day, if you're not getting the results that you want to see in your business or life, it's on you, my friend. It's nobody else's fault that you're not where you want to be in your life, but you. And so
stop the victim mentality.
Just stop it. I mean, it's literally, it's not your dad's fault, your mom's fault, your sorry ass husband's fault.
I like my husband.
Yeah, yes. Lucky for you, girl, but let's take it to that. But, it's not anybody's fault but yours. And so the question you have to ask yourself is, what am I going to do today to change how I show up in my life moving forward? Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to keep complaining and whining and saying that it's not working? Or are you going to change something so that you can, if you're married to somebody who you don't like, to where you can change the perspective of y'all's relationship, that you can get back to a time when you guys were madly in love and get back to that fun time of y'all.
Or you can get divorced.
Right. Either way, works for me.
Yeah. I mean, you can change your surroundings. You can change your environment.
Exactly.
So what about that same approach? So you were kind of giving the example of when you're giving someone money, a coach, a mentor, something like that. But what about investment? Just like choosing gratitude when you're paying your bills.
Right.
Like, oh, I'm so grateful that I can have electricity, that I can, spend money on Facebook ads or different things like that. When you shift your perspective instead of that fear, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to like pay rent or whatever? When you switch it to gratitude, I think that's a big piece that doesn't get talked about as much.
Well, and I also think that whenever we pay our bills, whether it's Facebook ads or just our monthly rent, you should look at it as payment for blessings already received. Like you've already been blessed
I
with a
love that.
beautiful place to live. You've already been blessed with Facebook ads that have brought you hopefully in hundreds of leads for the month that you can now convert into clients for your practice. So you're basically paying for blessings that you've already got. And by paying for these blessings, you're making room for more to come your way. I think when we go into any transaction with a fear of what if it doesn't work, or I did this before and it didn't work, like we are being stuck in a situation, in a past situation. So we're bringing a past situation into a present one that can be completely different. But because our energy is still stuck back 2 years ago or whenever that last thing happened for us, we stay in that same rut. And so if you're looking to move to a new point in your life, you have to move your mind to the point where you want to be. And again, that's easier said than done, especially if you're around a group of people who are negative Nellies, who all
Mhm.
they do all day is bitch, moan, whine, and complain. If that's who you're surrounded by, my first order of business for you is going to be get you some damn new friends. Like you got to get some new people. You cannot
Yeah,
upload your.
I love that. When I first started my business, I read that quote by Jim Rohn, and I talk about it all the time, but it's you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so if you're spending your time with people who are constantly struggling, and now we have this blessing of the internet that like even if you live in the middle of nowhere, you don't have, entrepreneurial friends around you, there are Facebook groups, there are meetups, there's different things that you can do to surround yourself with positive people that will lift you up and encourage you to be your best self.
Well, and I also think it's important that we as women give ourselves permission to totally evict the energy vampires from our lives. I think we as women have been taught to be people pleasers, don't rock the boat, stay in neutral, don't say anything that's gonna, cause any upheaval or gonna, ruffle any feathers. And I'm just here to tell you that's the biggest way to end up in the loony bin. Like you, you have,
And there it is, the
yes.
best quote from Tamiko.
I'm like, you have got to say what you need. We are not mind readers. We literally do not know what is acceptable in your life if you don't tell the people in your life what you will and will not tolerate. So it's
Mhm.
totally okay to tell somebody, hey, listen, I love you, but when you say XYZ to me, it makes me feel like A, like it just cannot continue. I mean, it's okay for you to create boundaries in your life, and it's okay to make people upset because now you're giving them the choice to say, am I going to stay on Tamiko's team or am I going to turn in my jersey and go to a new team? Like
Mhm.
you're giving them that option when you set up boundaries in your life.
Very good. So I love this episode. This has been filled with so many wonderful bits of advice, and we could go on so many different tangents. I mean, just with setting up your boundaries, it's like getting into policies in your business and cancellation. Oh, that's a whole nother episode. But is there anything that you need to say to make this episode complete?
I would just say to anybody listening to us is just don't be afraid to do you. Don't be afraid to be unapologetically who God created you to be. It is totally okay for you to say no when you want to, say yes when you want to tell people that they cannot walk all over you, to tell your clients that if she shows up to your appointment one more time, 15 minutes late, that she's going to be taken off your books forever. It's totally okay for you to have boundaries in your business. Because I think what you'll find is that once you create those boundaries and stick to them, your life will be so much easier.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for your time, Tamiko, and your expertise. We're going to include your links below the show notes, but where can people find you if they want to follow you?
Oh my gosh. So I am on Facebook literally every day. So Facebook is my home away from home. You can find me at facebook.com/IamTamiko. If you're a tired mama who has a sweet baby who refuses to sleep through the night, you can dive in feet first and get your hands on my program, the Feel Like Yourself Again Baby Sleep Solution, over at Busy Mom's Guide to babysleeptraining.com/5steps.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tamiko.
Thank you for having me.